Hello, beloveds. Welcome to the Amanda Collins podcast. It's my honor to help you awaken to joy, be your greatest self, and live a life you love. I'm Amanda Collins. Each week, I'll share tips, practices, and rituals to help you feel the storehouse of joy inside. I'll answer your questions and talk with thought leaders from around the world about health, wealth, love, conscious living, and parenting. Are you ready to live your most fulfilled life? Welcome to episode 56 with Don Miguel Ruiz Jr, Secrets to Healthy and Happy Relationships. In this episode, we're going to discuss freedom, the ability to enjoy and be exactly who you are without suppressing yourself in the form of judgment. Secrets to healthy and happy relationships with yourself and others. How to let go. How not to take things personally. Free yourself from limiting beliefs. Mastery of self. How to fully love and accept yourself and others. What is Toltec traditions? And then following ancient traditions and evolving them to your present life. The review of the week is from Joanne Mathis. Hi, Amanda. This is an outstanding podcast. I never miss an episode. Thank you. Thank you, Joanne, for the wonderful review. Don Miguel Ruiz Jr, author and Toltec master of transformation, a direct descendant of the Toltecs of the Eagle Knight lineage, is an internationally celebrated author and Toltec master of transformation. Son of Don Miguel Ruiz, renowned author of the Four Agreements, he apprenticed to his father and his grandmother, Madre Sarita, for 10 years. Don Miguel Jr. combines the wisdom of his family's traditions with knowledge gained from his own personal journey, along with his father, brother, and other sought-after teachers. Don Miguel Jr. leads workshops, retreats, and power journeys through the world to help people achieve their own personal freedom and optimal physical and spiritual health. He is the author of Living a Life of Awareness, Daily Meditations on the Toltec Path, The 5 Levels of Attachment, Toltec Wisdom for the Modern World, and The Mastery of Self, a Toltec Guide to Personal Freedom. Don Miguel Jr. also hosts a successful weekly internet radio show, The Way of the Desert. I am very excited to be introducing a very special guest, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. Welcome. So happy to have you here today.
Hi, good morning, Amanda. Thank you so much for having me on your program.
Oh, I am so honored. I've been following your work and your father's work for years and years. It was actually The Four Agreements is one of the first spiritual books that I own. So I'm so honored to have you here. And I love many of your books, The 5 Levels of Attachment and The Mastery of amazing work. Thank you.
Thank you. You're very kind. Thank you so much for the opportunity of sharing our family's tradition with you.
So please tell us a little bit about your path into what really made you want to teach this amazing wisdom in the world and for relationships and health and awareness.
Well, it was love, my love for my family. Although I have to admit, when I was younger, I rebelled against it. I apprenticed with my grandmother when I was 14 years old. And when I was in college, it was like I wanted to do my own thing. So I still listened. I still listened to the lessons. I listened to my father, but I wanted to do my own thing, because the saying I would say is that, what does this have to do with me? It belongs in a museum, or it belongs this. And to a certain degree, that was my mentality in my early 20s. And then my father suffered a massive heart attack, and I stopped my studies. I was working towards getting my master's degree in art direction, in graphic design, and film and video production, when he had the heart attack. And I came back home. I let go, and I came back to help my father. And then I tried to go back to school, but my mind was not in it anymore. I kept worrying a lot about my father. So I let go of the studies. I went back to my family, and I still continued working in the film industry because I had a lot of work I was doing at the time. So I was going to school and going to the film industry. And when my father recovered enough to go back to work, he asked for help. So I would, on occasion, go to his presentations, and whenever he got tired, I would go in there, and I start speaking and helping him out. Then after about 30 or 40 minutes, I'd look over to see how he was. If he gave me that look saying, okay, I'm ready to go, I would pass over the microphone to him. Sometimes he wasn't, so I just kept going. And little by little, um, I like just progressed and got better. And, you can say that I started out by covering the hits. I talked the four agreements, and that's the stuff that I knew at the time. And little by little, as I started getting a handle of it, getting it in my own words, not my father's words or my grandmother's words, but I started understanding that. And then my own life happened, like my own heartbreak happened. I was no longer in college. I was no longer working for grades. I was working for my own self. There's real life consequences to things. And then I began to understand my family's work better. It became an instrument. So you can say that when I was 21, I picked up the four agreements, and after the third chapter, I put it down because it was my dad telling me what to do all over again. And then when I was 27, I picked it up again the way other people in the world have picked it up. They see themselves in the book, they see the instruments that help, and it began to help me. And I began to apply it, really, not just repeat it verbatim. I really began to put it into practice. I used it as instruments, and it began to help me. So little by little, I just developed this voice of sharing what I've learned from putting these things into practice. And that was during my 30s. I basically developed that style. I developed that skill. And to the point where now in my 40s, I've got my own. I can talk for a whole week nonstop if you let me. And it's all about what I've learned, my own moments of clarity, my own aha moments, my own relationship with my wife, with my own kids, with everything in life. And that's how I got into it. I applied it, and also changed direction because I wanted to help my father, and I love him. And around that time, I just let go of my old life, or you can say my old dream of film production and art to help my father. And then everything I learned in film school and art school, I apply in writing a book. I edit a book the way I edit a movie. First I create this whole, when I write a book, I create this whole mass, I just call it the lump of clay. I just build, 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 build. Like I write with my heart. It doesn't have to be grammatically correct. It doesn't have to be specific or deep or profound. I just want to put all the thoughts down there. So I write with the heart, and then I edit with the mind, which means I begin to translate it to a language that someone else can understand. And that's how the books come out. And that's how the material I use for my classes and teachings come out from processing that, for putting them in order. And lo and behold, I'm applying everything I learned in art school. I apply it in writing a book and giving a presentation. And there I am.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And it reminds me of something my husband shares, that I was tearing up when you shared, like you picked up the book at 21 and you were just feeling, this is just, tell me what to do. And then at 27, it was like a new book, and my husband always says, the saying of, your parents always telling you what to do. And then when you reach a certain age, you're like, wow, how did they know so much? I didn't think they knew anything. You just realize, wow, you're finally ready to let it in, So, and, as you were saying that, I was thinking, well, maybe like one of these books will be a movie. Why not? Right? As you were saying
Who
that.
knows? You
Yeah.
never know. You never
Yeah.
know.
And it's
Like
amazing.
you
Sorry,
never
go
know
ahead.
who it inspires.
Yeah, yeah. And I was, it's amazing how, whatever we've done in our life, it's all kind of leading to something. So these amazing tools that you learned in movie school and everything, how they apply in such powerful ways still.
Hmm. Oh yeah, it's to me the Toltec tradition, the lessons of this philosophy or tradition is just letting life be the teacher, and life teaches us through the actions and consequences of those actions, either good or bad, right or wrong. The consequences teaches us, and if we pay attention, it's a lesson that will help us for the rest of our life. And if we don't pay attention, it's a lesson we're going to repeat over and over until we get hip with it.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think for all our listeners that are here, what exactly is like the Toltec traditions teachings? Like, could you kind of explain that to us?
Well, to summarize, because it's a lot. I'm going to
Yeah.
quote my brother. Uh, in a Toltec tradition, there's nothing to learn but to unlearn, to let go of all those beliefs that don't let us live our authentic life or our happiness or even our own perception. The Toltec tradition as a culture ceased to exist over 500 years ago, either with the expansion of the Aztec Empire or the Spanish Empire, but it ceased to be a culture. So at that point, it became more of a tradition, an oral tradition that's taught from generation to generation. There are places and families across Mexico that might teach the Toltec tradition as it was over 500 years ago. And there's families like mine that adapted with each generation because each generation applies it in their own unique way. My grandmother would say to us, if you do the Toltec tradition in the same way I do it, or your father does it, you're killing the tradition because all you're doing is just repeating. You apply it in your life, and it'll adapt to your life. And what changes and what gives it its form is your particular individual life. It's kind of like being a parent. My grandmother was raised during the Mexican Revolution. My grandmother raised my father during the 1960s. And then my parents raised us during the 80s and 90s and the internet age. And my kids, they won't know a world where nothing, like where information is, you have to look for information. You just Google it. Just every generation teaches in their own unique way. So the Toltec tradition, from that point of view, is basically not only the lessons that life teaches us, but the ability to let go of that what doesn't serve us anymore. So for me, it's the ability to find my own happiness, to teach me how to accept myself as I am, to love myself as I am, and I can't give what I do not have. In letting go, we become aware that it's not an attachment we have to an object, but the meaning it has, the meaning of that object in my life that I'm attached to. So letting go of that belief is facing our own truth. So the relationship within myself, as my father would put it in the question during my training, is if you're the voice that's talking inside your own mind when you're thinking, who's listening? And I answered, I am. I'm the one listening. Oh, really? So if you're the one listening, who's talking in your own mind when you're thinking? I said, I am. And there it is, the individual relationship within myself. If that relationship is in disharmony, then all my relationships are in disharmony. But if I bring harmony into that relationship, then there's harmony within me. So the word Toltec is a Nahuatl word, a Mesoamerican word, that in English means artist. If I translate the phrase, the Toltec art of transformation, or the Toltec path of transformation, into 100% English, then it means the artist path of transformation. I am an artist, and the canvas for my work of art is my life. And the instruments I'm going to use to create that work of art is going to be my body. It's going to be my mind. It's going to be my intent that gives power to both. And my work of my the canvas for my work of art is my life. And that canvas at one point will reflect the most perfect nightmare. And as it morphs and changes, it can become the most perfect harmonious dream. And it morphs and changes between the two throughout my life. But I'm the artist that creates it.
That's so beautiful. That's just like poetry, what you're saying there, and I have questions because what you brought up was so beautiful. You said, how do we unlearn? So what society has told us, what our parents, what teachers, have put upon us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how does one start to unravel and unlearn those things that are so deep rooted into our consciousness that we think is the way, the only way?
Yeah. Well, during my apprenticeship with my father, he gave us 3 rules, very basic. And that's the rules whoever was an apprentice to my father, to the family, there's 3 rules you have to follow. First rule is the easiest one. And so imagine my father saying this to me: Miguel, first rule is don't believe me. And I said, done, easy. But after he smiled, he said, but learn to listen. Somewhere in what's being said lies the truth.
Mm.
Because you don't know where I learned what I saying this to you. You don't know where I get my information. Be skeptical, which is to withhold your yes and your no, and give scrutiny to it. If it survives your scrutiny, then say yes. And if it doesn't survive your scrutiny, then you say no. But learn to listen. That's the key point. Somewhere in what's being said lies the truth. And you giving it scrutiny allows you that. And if you understand this first rule, then you might understand the second rule. Don't believe yourself, but learn to listen. For the same reason, you don't know where you learned your point of information. You might have learned misinformation. You might have read fake news that sustained or followed your prejudice or whatever ideas that you may hold dear. You don't know. So give scrutiny to what you believe. Somewhere what's being said lies the truth. And if you understand this concept that don't believe me, don't believe yourself, but learn to listen, then you may understand the third rule. Don't believe anyone else, but learn to listen. Somewhere what's being said lies the truth. You can call this the fifth agreement. Be skeptical, but learn to listen. What kind of messenger are you? Now, the question is, what's truth then? Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist, has one of my favorite quotes. The truth exists whether you believe in it or not. Or to add the full quote, the thing about science is that the truth exists whether you believe in it or not. For example, a black hole in the universe was going to exist whether or not Einstein imagined it, or we get pictures of it for the very first time, which happened just less than a month ago. Like a young woman scientist figured out the algorithm that allowed the ability to use telescopes to find a black hole, thus confirming it went from hypothesis to theory to fact.
Mm.
But the truth exists whether humans believed in it or not. It was going to exist anyways. Truth. A belief, on the other hand, a belief only exists for as long as you say yes to it, which means for as long as you believe it. As soon as you change that yes into a no, it ceases to believe, which means a belief only exists for as long as you believe it. As soon as you change your mind and no longer believe it, it ceases to exist, which means it's an illusion that feels concrete because we give it power with our agreement, with our yes. But it's still an illusion, regardless of how many people believe it. It's still an illusion. At any given moment, someone can change their mind, or a mass group of people change their mind, and a belief will cease to exist. In the same way that Zeus and all the gods of Olympus or Pantheon um, existed and they were real for many people, and then one day, out of nobody knows really one day, Zeus became more of a legendary god rather than a real god. And there it is. The gods only exist for as long as humans believe in us, said Zeus. I believe that's a quote, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But that's to unlearn, is to give the ability to give scrutiny to what we believe. Where did we get it from? Is it the truth? Is it not the truth? And the reason why that matters is that beliefs, especially the ones that our conditional love are based on, will dictate our happiness, our sense of self. Now, for me, one of the things I've learned throughout all these years of doing what I do is that we heal with our own permission. We heal using the intent, or you can say our effort, to find that healing. But in order for that to happen, it requires permission. It requires the awareness to know that I need help. I am in a position where I'm going to take the steps in order to find healing, and I'm going to give myself that opportunity. Sometimes we stop ourselves because of a belief system, an idea. I'm a Toltec. I'm never supposed to be unhappy. No, that's not true. We're living life.
Mm-hmm.
If you, like my grandmother used to say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
My mom says that the same thing about our kids.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like that's the way life is. It's the thing about all this work is that when life gets rough, when we go through a rough patch, we use everything we learn not only to keep the story moving forward, but to give us that opportunity to heal. And when life is going well, we give ourselves the opportunity to enjoy it, and that's life. So the Toltec philosophy, to sum all that up, is really about enjoying life. Are you going to enjoy life, or are you going to continue to create that perfect nightmare?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's like my heart is just like blasting wide open with this beautiful wisdom that you're sharing. So you also said, it's all about how to find out who you truly are. So first of all, you're talking about how to unlearn, what society is taught, and be willing to like question your own truth and those that you feel that you've always gone to for guidance, like whether it's, our parents for the first at least, 13 years of our life. It's just verbatim, and our teachers. But then, okay, so you start to unlearn things. But then how do you start finding out who you truly are at the core of who you are and your own truth?
Well, it requires the ability to take responsibility for your own actions. If the work we're doing is to gain our personal free will, that requires the responsibility of owning our own consequences. To respect ourselves, to make a choice, to say yes and no to things, which comes along hand in hand with the ability to respect ourselves, to experience the consequences of our own choices, which means, yes, society taught us this. Yes, society domesticated us. Yes, it told me what to do, what not to do. Yes, it was in the form of my parents or family or girlfriends or friends or school, whatever. Yes, they did their part, and for a long time I believed them. But there's a quote that I absolutely love, by a first lady, here in the States, Eleanor Roosevelt, the wife to Franklin Roosevelt. And she said, "No one can make me feel inferior without my consent." I absolutely love that quote.
Me too.
To me, it explains not taking things personal, but for me, it also means that anything that makes me feel inferior, that makes me forsake myself, it has power over me because I gave it power, because I gave it permission. And how did I give it permission? By believing it, by agreeing with it. And when I agree to something or I believe it, I take action. And when I take action, I can create it, I can manifest it, I can make it as real as anything. But it's still an illusion because its only power is my yes. As soon as I change that yes into a no, it ceases to exist, which means the best way to let go of those things, to take away its power, is yes, to assume responsibility for me saying yes to it. Yes, Mick Jagger says you can't be a man if he doesn't smoke the same cigarettes as me. As telling us that is, I can get no satisfaction. It basically means that if I let a slogan like that, a commercial, tell me what it is to be a man, or just as commercial can tell you what it is to be a woman, it only has power because we believe it. Well, I forgive myself for believing it in the first place. So the best way to let go of conditional love is to forgive ourselves for ever saying yes to it in the first place. And little
Yeah.
by little, we unravel that. It requires that acceptance, that awareness, first step. In my case, um, the telltale sign that I've used the four agreements as an instrument of domestication is judging myself for taking things personal, judging myself for making an assumption, judging myself for not being impeccable with my word, and judging myself for not doing my best. That at that moment, I become aware that I've used the four agreements as an instrument of domestication or conditioning. Thus, I corrupted them and turned them into the four conditions of our personal freedom. The four conditions. And they look exactly the same as the four agreements. But because I'm so used to domestication, I'm so used to conditioning and conditional love, I think I'm practicing the four agreements. But if I'm judging myself and then I go and judge others, like imagine my wife, hey, honey, here's the four agreements, read it. And I judge her for for taking things personal, for not being impeccable with the word. Then at that moment, I'm punishing her for agreements she never made, but I'm forcing her to make the agreements through the judgment, because that's what I have within myself. So at that moment, I become aware of the four conditions. All right, that's the moment of clarity. I became aware of that. People, before I even wrote a book, people used to interview me and ask me, which one of the four agreements is the hardest one for you to follow or practice? And I used to answer, well, being impeccable with the word or taking things personally. And it was always between those two. Then as I did my work and I did that in that self-evaluation or being aware, truth and honest to myself, those ones were the hardest because I was pretending to be a man who didn't take things personal, and I was pretending to be a man who didn't take things who was impeccable with his word. So, with that moment of clarity, a moment of unconditional love is to see myself as I really am, the sum of every decision that I've ever made. I am Miguel Ruiz, and I do take things personal. I do make assumptions. Sometimes I'm not impeccable with my words. Sometimes I'm not skeptical at all. I buy a hook, line, and sinker, and sometimes I don't do my best. Just ask my wife. She is my witness. It is the moment where I stop pretending to be something I am not and accept the truth. And what is the truth? That I am a man who practices the four conditions. So then I read the book again. I look at what it is to not take things personally, which to me simply means to not assume responsibility for someone else's will. I take complete and complete responsibility of my own with its consequences. So I understand that book. I understand the chapter. Then I begin to look at myself and be honest with myself. What triggers me to take things personal? What triggers me to not being impeccable with the word? And I look at those choices. I look at those truths, and then I begin to apply it. So when I recognize it in my life that I'm about to hit a trigger, I have a choice. If I want to take it personal, it's because I want to take it personal. But if I don't want to take it personal because I don't want the hangover that comes with it, then I will choose not taking it personal. And in that moment, I'll make a choice. And that's what the agreements are. The word agreement is simply the action of saying yes to something. That's what that word means, to say yes to something. Well, I choose in that moment of my trigger, of moment of choice, how do I want to use the yes, to take it personal or not take it personal. And little by little, with that practice, I do become a man who doesn't take things personal, not because I pretended to be something I am not, but because by little, I put into practice that skill. But it all requires the ability to recognize the difference between the four conditions and the four agreements.
It's beautifully put. So when you say that it's a conscious choice, this has happened with this person. I'm going to take this either personally or not, and you can choose. I'm not going to take it personally. So do you think it's something that takes practice? You almost have to fake it, because if something happens and you are consciously choosing, I don't want to take this personally, but you can feel it in your body, you can feel it emotionally, spiritually, physically, that it's just your very sensitive soul, and you're taking it on. How can you, yes, we can say I'm choosing not to, but if if on your cells it's telling you something different, what do you do? Like, is it practice? Fake it till you make it? How does that work?
No, actually, that's the worst part. Like, if you fake it till you make it, then you're already suppressing yourself. You're rejecting yourself. Faking it until you make it, you're already pretending to be something you're not. And that's where the four conditions come in again. So forget about faking it till you make it. No, you're making it. It's free will, is to be able to say, if I want to take it personal, I'll take it personal. And if I don't want to take it personal, I can not take it personal. I'm free to say yes to either one. That's true acceptance. True unconditional love is the willingness to see the whole of me. Faking it until you're making it is pretending to be something you're not. And of course, you're going to pretend. So how do we handle it? Well, first, you start by accepting this is how I feel. Our emotions are real. So honoring ourselves is actually honoring, right now I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I am jealous, or whatever emotion that comes with that makes us unhappy. I'm not going to even call it negative or positive emotions. Forget it. What makes me happy? What doesn't make me happy? And those emotions don't make me happy. They make me feel uncomfortable. They make me feel anger, and I accept the truth. All right, I am angry, and this person triggered me. All right. Before, you would pretend to be something you're not, or you simply run with it. But if I want to make a change in my life, it starts with that honoring yourself. All right, I'm angry. I'm not pretending. I'm not going to fake it. I'm going to accept this is me. Controlling your emotions, it's not about suppressing your emotion. It's about acknowledging your emotion and then choosing how you want that to be released. You can hear it in Bono's song, and and U2 and Cranberry song. Like, they create the most beautiful melodies. They get angry and all that kind of thing, but you choose a way to let it all out, and you can create the most beautiful angry song. You can create the most beautiful heartbroken song. I'm thinking about Linger. I'm thinking about Sunday Bloody Sunday, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking of those two songs right there. And both songs stir emotion, but you chose how you're going to let that out. You chose a way, and as human beings, we're as complex as that be. But with practice, you have a choice. So, for example, let's say that on Facebook, there's always someone who posts something that triggers me. It first starts with, okay, I take things personal. First step. Second step, I read the book and I understand the concept. Okay. Third, I understand the trigger. That's why now I'm aware this person on Facebook makes me trigger. Okay. Here's the thing. I can't practice not taking things personally in the past, because in the past, a yes and no, you can't change that yes to a no or no to a yes, because life no longer exists in the past, and your memory of it may not be what actually happened. So it may not happen the way you thought it happened, because our perception kind of already kind of skewed it up a bit. The future doesn't exist yet. There's not enough what ifs to be able to predict a yes and no in the future. So the only place where you're able to practice making a choice is in this present moment. So if you know there's someone on Facebook that makes you go grr and you want to face it and practice that, then you log on to Facebook. You scroll down and there's the name.
I love it.
The moment of truth is here. You scroll down a bit more and see the post. It's a doozy. You look. So at that moment, you have a choice. If you want to take it personal, you take it personal. Good, bad, right, or wrong, that's what you want. But if you don't want to take it personal because you've understand the concept and you don't want the hangover of taking it personal then you say yes to not taking it personally, and you move on. It's not about suppressing. It's about choosing how you want that emotion to come out. But in that practice, you get better and better. But it's all about accepting your truth at that moment, accepting where you're at this moment. And that's what's going to allow you to really make a choice, because little by little, that agreement will look dramatically different than it might look in the book, because it's going to be your life. It's going to fit you and your preferences in life.
Yeah.
So
And
faking it to the make it, well, if we fake it, we're not really applying it. We're suppressing, and it's going to come out later in a worse way, because suppressing ourselves always hurts. Pretending to be something we're not always hurts. Forsaking ourselves always hurts. But respecting ourselves, that feels good. Um, Knowing our boundaries and respecting those boundaries feels good. They're different. Boundaries are different than conditions. Boundaries are the line where I take care of myself, I protect myself, and they're different than the lines ego and self-importance say. Respect is willingness to take care of me and respect my own yes and my own no, because my no is just as powerful as my yes. And that's going to become something true until we get to the point where we know how to practice that. We know how to put it into effort. One of the greatest things I've ever learned is to say no without anger, to say no without the crutch of getting annoyed at someone. I can say no with the most comfortable way. It's an important instrument, and it's not negative as people would paint it. It's the most beautiful thing, because that two-letter word represents the moment where I choose not to use the energy that animates this body, that animates this mind, to create a single thing. Well, yes, that two-letter word represents the moment where I do make the choice to make and create something with my mind and my body and my soul. My yes and my no, otherwise known as my will. To have free will is to be able to say yes and no with complete freedom of life, and knowing that life has all the right to say no to me, just like you have all the right to say no to me. That's why I'm so grateful that when life gives me the yes, it's an opportunity. What do I have to do? Be ready for that opportunity. Work, practice, know myself. And that's when I get to know what I'm capable of, what I'm able to create, what I'm able to experience. And that to me is what the work of art is.
that's beautiful. So it's like knowing our truth, letting us accept our truth, feel our truth, process our truth, whether it's through song or poetry or journaling or whatever modality, and then speaking our truth and living it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Beautiful.
living it. And that's our authenticity, to rem- to say words and use those words to heal, to create, or to destroy, or to hurt. That's always the choice of an individual. And the most important part is that, how am I going to use it with myself? Because I can't give what I do not have.
Yeah. And I love that, because it's about consciously, being in the moment, because sometimes people are just not even aware that they are triggered. So it's really about being present with your emotions, with your thoughts.
Yes.
What are like three, if you were to share three top practices or three daily practices that you do that support you to be present, to be aware, in order to like know if there was a trigger, so you have that awareness? What are three practices to keep yourself really in balance that you use daily?
Well, the first one is going to be awareness. And I like using my emotions as an instrument of awareness. My emotions are real. What triggered them may not be real. So my emotions are like a car alarm. When you turn on the car alarm in the car, it goes off whenever someone touches it, right? All right. Whenever I have an emotional reaction, my emotions just exposed a belief, an idea, a wound, a condition that got triggered by that belief. And then I process them. So basically, one of the one of the practices is being in touch with my emotions, to not pretend to be something I'm not. I feel those emotions and I honor them, and then I choose how to let them go. Awareness, once again, the practice of awareness. How do I feel? With my son, are you in a green place? Are you in a yellow place, or in your red place? He has autism, so teaching him emotions and emotional controlling requires a bit more effort. So green is like, oh, I'm okay, I'm chill, I can go, I can do this. Yellow is like, all right, I'm getting a little frustrated. I'm just gonna redirect and change and take a step back. Red is like, all right, I am angry. I'm frustrated. Definitely a break time. Let's go do something that's going to help me chill. There's a chill ball that he goes to, and he relaxes on it. And then, there is a fourth one that requires him to and that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough on anyone when they're in the middle of a rage, or in my son's case, a meltdown. The famous autistic meltdown that requires him to regain his breath. That's the exercise we do. We regain the breath. So that all goes down to being that one practice, right? Awareness. Know yourself. Second, the very first things I do in my day is helping my children get ready for school. So, what are your priorities? Always look at what your priorities are in life. Who is your priority? What's your priority? My main priority is, you can say, me, because I'm the source that allows my family to thrive or to be healthy, to eat. I can't give what I do not have. So when I wake up and I help my kids, I help with their food. With my wife and I, we're a team. It's all hands on deck. That's the words I use. We
Yep.
help each other out, and it's all about helping them find their base in their day. And it's a balance of doing things for them, but at the same time giving them like more rope, little by little, more responsibility to take care of themselves, and little by little we just take a step back and they know what to do. But we put that, so we're in service, and that's it. We give service to the people we care about, and it starts with what satisfies me, what's my purpose. And that's the other one. What makes me happy? What makes me want to create? What makes me get up in the morning and create with my family, with friends, to get on the phone with you and talk to you right now? A desire to share, a desire to create, a desire to give, and take action in an opportunity to help someone else. So service, awareness, and then there's love. I love my family and I appreciate them. That goes along with the last two. They're all tied together. But it's basically not taking them for granted, accepting my mortality. One day I'm going to be dead, and one day my kids and my wife will be dead. But they're not dead today. Enjoy them. Enjoy them that we're here. Gratitude. Love is the perfect balance between generosity and gratitude. It's the thing that allows us not to take someone for granted. All of this will end one day, but it's not ending today, so enjoy it. And instead of worrying about that they will end, accept it. It's going to end, and that's fine. That's what life is. That gives us the opportunity to enjoy and really, really appreciate what you have.
Beautiful.
And to me, it's like I said before, they're not material things. They're people. They're the people in my life. I will take that time to call my mom. I'll take the time to call my father, my brothers, give a hug to my daughter and my son. And when the kids are off, before my wife goes off to work, we spend a good half hour talking, having a cup of coffee, eating our breakfast if there's anything left over, and we just check in with one another before she leaves.
I love that, because my husband and I, it's very similar, and we've got a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old almost, and it's like, yeah, you wake up and it's of service, and just that awareness, because otherwise you can just spend that morning kind of rushing and like just trying to get ready to go to the door. But when you bring in that awareness, and I love that you said inviting them just to grow and do that bit more every day. That's beautiful. So now I have one last question. One beautiful, this is more personal, if you'd like to share, but a tip that for success in marriage, happy relationship, if you could share one nugget one golden nugget with us, what would that be?
The motivator that allows us to get through the tough patches is love. My my stepmom, may she rest in peace, my mama Gaia. Um, but about a few months before her passing, she asked my wife, "How did you guys handle the culture clash as a couple?" Because my wife and I come from, you can say, two totally different worlds. And I grew up in a border town between Tijuana and San Diego. That's where I was raised, in a big city, in two cities, and two cities that speak two different languages and totally different sets of cultural values and things like that. And my wife grew up in a farm in Utah. I grew up Catholic. She grew up Mormon, and my, mostly Mesoamerican and Hispanic. Hers is mostly European, and actually, she's German slash British. So she's got a combination of those two worlds. So when my mom asked her, and I call my stepmom a mama, may she rest in peace. How do you handle the culture clash? My wife said it beautifully: because we love each other. That love is the thing that helps us. Why be with someone who doesn't want to be with us? The source of a relationship is that we want to be together. And here's the thing: my wife is only with me for as long as you say yes. At any given moment, you can change that yes into a no. To love someone is to set them free. That means to respect their freedom, to respect their no just as much as their yes, because their no is just as powerful as your yes. And knowing full well that they're only there because they want to be there. Even if we got married, they're still there because they want to be there. And that's all, and that's crucial. In the same way that I'm only there because I want to be there. We're both together in this relationship because we're both saying yes. And at any given time, we can change that no. That's the beautiful thing. Whoever's afraid of that no is going to be the one that's going to try to domesticate the other or subjugate themselves to the other. Is the one that's going to either give away their personal freedom, or it's going to take the personal freedom of someone else. And that's where conflicts and all that thing arises. Who's going to domesticate who to make them fit the image of what love should be? But if you understand that they're only here for as long as they want to be here, and here's the thing, that relationship will also end, either by choice, by life, or by death. But this relationship will end one day. And like I said prior, just like accepting our mortality, accepting my mortality allows me to accept your mortality. Well, with this relationship will one day end. So enjoy it. Don't be afraid of the no. Don't be afraid of the goodbye, because when we let go of that fear, then we lose the fear of saying hello. And in this case, we say hello to each other every morning, and we still find that love for one another, that appreciation, that hug, that love, that ability. And also intimacy is not just a kiss or that embrace we have as couples. It goes into, as I just described it, all hands on deck. To me, that's a word of love, because it means that we're in it together. It's, like if I know my wife is coming home from work and she's going to be tired, I'm going to do the dishes and laundry. Why? Because I've got the time and I've got the effort and I've got the opportunity. And if I do it, when she comes home, we'll be free to do other things. And I do it because I want to help. Those are the kind of little things that go, intimacy goes deeper. A conversation, a holding of a hand, a moment of frustration. Like for now, it took me some time to realize that when she comes home and vents everything that happened at work, she's not asking me to fix it. She just wants someone to share that with, and I'm just going and listening. It's not an empty no, I'm listening, but she's not asking me to fix it. Once I'll give her my advice if she all of a sudden asks me, but most of the time she just wants someone to vent, and then when she vents, she looks at me and says, "Thank you." You're welcome.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that that intimacy takes. It all depends on the couple, but the motivator will always be love.
That's beautiful.
It's the thing that's that kind of separates someone from dating to just, a serious relationship and marriage. When you're just dating someone, or when you face that first hurdle and that love is not strong enough, then yes, the relationship will split up. The motivator wasn't strong. The as my dear friend Kirk Summers says, is the juice worth the squeeze? Meaning, is the consequence worth the effort? When you're dating someone, the effort is not worth it. In a more serious relationship, the effort is definitely more worth it, but there's always that breaking point, where you're not willing to cross that threshold. And then there's marriage, where you cross that threshold and you realize that we crossed the threshold because we're creating a whole new culture. My wife and I created a whole new culture within our family, between she and I and our kids and our dogs. We've created a culture that's unique to she and I and us, our kids and our pets.
It's beautiful.
And that's the things, like it's kind of like the willingness to find that common ground, to keep the cultures we came up with, the good elements, and let go of the elements that prohibit us from being together. If those elements are there, let go of them.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And I love your grandmother. Sounded like an amazing, beautiful woman, as your father and your wife and your children. So thank you for sharing of yourself so generously. And I did love so much as you were sharing about the Toltec tradition. You're like, we take it on, but then we make it our own, and allow it to keep evolving. And I thought that was so beautiful. So thank you so much. And one very quick, I know you have to go, but one tiny last question. In this moment, how can we be of service to you?
You already have. You gave me the opportunity to share my tradition with you. Now it's up to you. If you find something relevant, run with it. And if it doesn't, that's perfectly fine. But you just gave me the opportunity, and that's all I have ever asked.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and everything with us. This was invaluable. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I hope you and your whole family have a wonderful time and enjoy everything in life.
Oh, thank you. And same to you and your family.
Thank you. Have fun.
Bye, you too.
Bye.
Each month, I offer free new moon meditations. Head over to amandacollins.com. There you'll find a registration link. If you'd like to be the next review that I read, please go over to whatever podcast platform you listen and leave me a 5-star review. I would be so, so grateful. If there's someone in your life that could benefit from this episode, please share it with them now. And another thing, please feel free to reach out to me and tell me who else you'd like me to interview on this show. We have the Priestess Remembrance Retreat coming up in August in Ireland, a women's journey of embodiment to reclaim and rebirth the priestess within. We're going to go to sacred sites and have our own beautiful manor with local organic foods. Join Laura Swan and I in August in Ireland. Please reach out if you have any questions. Now, Don Miguel and I would love to hear from you. What are some of the tools and experiences that you have had to really cultivate a happy and healthy relationship with yourself and others? Please share in the notes below. Know that by you sharing your experience might be just what somebody else needs to have their own transformation. Thanks, beloveds, for joining us today. Please come over to theamandacollins.com to continue the conversation and get access to all my podcasts, blogs, and videos. Did you enjoy this podcast? If so, please subscribe to the Amanda Collins podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Feel free to pass this podcast on to your friends. That helps us get incredible guests to share their secrets for an inspired and joyful life. If you want more great resources, come over to amandacollins.com and join my mailing list for all my latest content. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm sending love